So we're from Land Lakes. Dwayne Bieberg, Director of Business Intelligence and Advanced Analytics, and with me, Chakra, leading our big data practice. A little bit about who we are. I think a lot of people recognize Land Lakes, from our iconic Indian Maiden logo and our dairy line. We're actually quite a bit more than that. We operate 4 diversified agribusinesses, really focused on insights and innovation. I'll give you a little bit of background in each one. Winfield United, they're our precision agriculture company. They're basically driven by data, driven by insights and research. Some of the key technologies they have in that space include an answer plot system with over 200 answer plots, which are in-field research plots throughout the US, Canada, and Mexico. They have 30,000 replicated trials, testing things like soil, seed performance, hybrids, and different characteristics of seed. They also have Nutri-Solutions, which is combination with the answer plot. You can go out to a field, take a sample of both tissue and soil, send it in and get lab results, analysis sent back on a nightly basis, so the next day you can optimize your field, your watering habits, your soil, to really adapt within the market. They combine that with one of our geospatial technologies, which is R7. So we're combining research and the geospatial to get basically prescriptive analytics on the field throughout the growing season. The next one's Purina. Purina, we're basically the leader in animal nutrition and feed. Within the Purina side, they're really leveraging a team of research scientists, a state-of-the-art research facility in Gray Summit, as well as 90 years of research history. We're using big data within the Purina space to really look at that data in different ways. We're able to, they got about 24,000 studies that they're doing in the lifetime that they've had it. They're taking data science to reduce the time it takes to predict the outcome of a study. We're also using it to optimize young animal growth, as well as new ways to look at feed and optimizing feed for the growth in every life stage of an animal. Land O'Lakes, that's our iconic division, which most people recognize us from. That's in your dairy case, it's in your deli aisle. It's also in many of the other products you eat. We're a major provider of ingredients to a lot of other manufacturers throughout the world. We operate in food service operations, which include hotels, restaurants. We operate global dairy ingredients, really providing powders and high performance powders for other additives, as well as what you see in your dairy case. And our most recent addition to our family of businesses is Sustain, and that's really focused on providing sustainable crop production practices, both through products and services, looking at reducing greenhouse gases, looking at water, protecting our watershed areas, and really helping farmers through services, as well as leveraging AI to recognize where runoff might be occurring. So by the numbers, we're a pretty big company, 215 Fortune 500, 13 billion in annual revenues, roughly 10,000 employees, with 1,000 in IT. We operate as a co-op. A co-op has a lot of similarities to what we do here. It's all about a community. Like open source, we provide a variety of different services, not only to our members, but growers. We provide products to really help build and drive new innovation within the agriculture and dairy production markets. So across all of our business units, we basically contain everything from farm to fork is kind of the motto we use. We can take it from designing new products all the way to what gets consumed. Gives us a unique position within insights, where we can look at insights across the actual inputs going in, as well as consumer behaviors coming out. I'm going to talk next a little bit about our organization, what our journey is in the big data area. We're really focused on, you've heard it multiple times, it's people, process, and technology. We believe strongly in all of them, and we're innovating to create new opportunities. On the people side, we've organized into key strategic areas and verticals that really focus on designing best practices in big data, applying governance techniques. We also have data science that Chakra is really leading and helping us drive new innovation in that space. And data visualization and engineering, and each one of these managers is here today, so if you have questions afterwards, I'd be happy to introduce you. Technology side, Chakra's going to go into depth on this. So the basis is we're running a hybrid organization. We've got still some traditional Exadata, some engineered systems, but more and more our data is being generated in the cloud. So we're leveraging new technologies, new ways of analyzing it, and the Hadoop platform to really address those needs of our consumers as well as our internal customers. And why are we doing it? You know, it's really becoming more timely, becoming agile in our decision-making process, making better informed decisions, discovering hidden insights. You know, that 90 years of research history I talk about on Perina, we're uncovering things that we never even thought were possible before, looking at that data in different ways with different techniques. Automating business process, we're looking at making timely decisions. You take milk production and milk supply. When that truck arrives at a farm to pick up that milk, we want to do the sampling right at that point in time to understand where that truck should go next. Is it high quality milk that should be used in premium butters, or is it lower quality milk that we use in yogurts or something else for powders? And you heard Bill from Dell this morning really talk about the use in partnering with your business, and that's been key for us. We're really looking at how do we apply different use cases and how do we come up with those use cases along with our business partners. We're going to talk about one specific today, really around marketing digital command center. And we're also got a variety of other ones in there that I've already mentioned before. The key is here is really evaluating what's coming up, look for those quick wins within your organization, find ones that give you success to really champion that next project that's after that. For example, if you've got something that you know has a large return on investment, break it up into smaller chunks, and that's what we're doing with Digital Command Center. We got a quick win with that. That's driving into new capabilities and new funding sources to get into the next piece. And that's what we're working on right now is some of that attribution. We're building out our data lake really to support marketing analytics and new innovation in the marketing space. Helps us dive deep into return on investment of these different channels. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chakra. He's our resident nerd whisperer, so he'll take the technical portion.
Well, thanks, Dwayne. So, Digital Command Center was just a portion of our overall marketing analytics, right? If you look at our marketing analytics, it's a multi-year journey that we have. And last year is when we started this thing. And Digital Command Center is actually, if you go to our Arden Hills headquarters in Minnesota, there are like 4 big screens at the 4th floor, right next to where the marketing team sits, right? And these 4 big screens basically show information around 4 key items. There is one is clickstream, other is social media, third is search results, and fourth is nerve center, right? So what was the idea behind it, right? So if you look at marketing, it's all about what campaign we are spending our money on, what are the various digital impressions that we are creating, and what is the value we are getting out of those impressions, right? So this was the first step, which was to show what kind of impression we are creating in various channels, right? The bottom design you see, it looks a little more prettier when you see in real life. I passed it through our lawyer, and we had to black mark all the numbers and stuff, but it does look prettier in real life, So if you look at the right-hand corner, so before I go there, this left-hand side is actually a control panel, right? So we have these 4 big monitors, and then we have a small control panel on the left-hand side, and these control panels has sections for each business unit, right? So the one Dwayne touched on, there is dairy, there is Purina, and there is Winfield, right? As you select one of the business units, all these 4 monitors refreshes with data for that particular business unit, right? So if you select, for example, Purina, which is our animal feed, it will show you what are the websites that folks are coming into, what is the count of sessions on those websites. It shows what devices they are using to come to our websites. It shows whether it was an organic way they came to our website, or was it paid or whatnot, right? So it shows all that information on the right-hand corner. Then if you see on the left-hand side, it shows all the social media interaction that we're having. So Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, Twitter, all those. And you may think, why does Twitter matter for us? Like when there is Thanksgiving and stuff, if a blogger actually blogs about a recipe which uses Llano Lake's butter, it actually drives our butter sale, right? So we need to have a really pay close attention to what kind of topics are being discussed about and what are the messages that are coming out through social media, right? On the left-hand side at the bottom, if you have a Google search around, say, butter, where do we rank in that search, right? So it has all the search engine optimization related data, talks about what are the top terms that are being used, where we rank, and also it shows the actual Google results of how it shows, right? The right-hand corner shows the nerve center. So this is where if you're talking about, say, butter, and then you're talking about maybe honey and pistachio flavor, we know that that's the kind of topics that folks are interested in, right? So it helps us to come up with new product innovations, and that's what the nerve center actually shows, right? So this whole thing was actually built in a span of 2 to 2.5 months, right? Using completely open source technologies, right? So my rest of the discussion, before I go to the technology pieces, this is our reference architecture. And there are a lot of boxes over here. But if you try to read it from the left to the right, on the left-hand side, we have those green boxes, which talks about a lot of, most of the sources are semi-structured, right? If you talk Google Analytics, Adobe, there is clickstream information, they are semi-structured information. And then at the bottom, you have the traditional relational systems, right? ERP, CRM, and whatnot. The next layer, we bring in all those traditional systems into our data warehouse. We bring all these newer sources into our enterprise data lake, which is the big box at the center. I'll talk about what it consists of in the next few slides. At the top-hand side, we have actually, there are products available in the industry which provides you pre-canned KPIs, reports, and dashboard around marketing, right? When you have a pre-canned reports and dashboard available in the market, you don't want to build from the scratch, right? This is where we just provide information to those platforms, and we leverage their canned KPIs and reports. And we are using Data Roma and IRI Liquid data over there, right? So those three are, I would say, the key sources of information for our entire marketing analytics, right? If you move to the next layer, this is where we have some self-service and discovery aspects from our EDL platform. One thing we kind of actually want to kind of make sure within our enterprise is the EDL platform is just used for discovery and advanced analytics. We're not using it for traditional just reporting and dashboarding purpose. It's much more broader than that. So if you look at that, we have the discovery aspect that is coming in the top layer, and then the bottom we have the advanced analytics tools and technologies that are going against that platform, right? The fourth layer is actually, it's our engagement layer. Engagement layer, digital command center is just one of the ways to interact with the end users. There are other interaction mechanisms we can have, like if you have something to speak to the sales guy, we want to use the sales platform, right? You may use the marketing platform or whatnot. So that's our engagement layer, and digital command center is one of them. Technology stack. This is what we are using in our EDL platform. There are basically 5 major components to it. There is data ingestion, both real as well as batch. There is data storage. We have a NoSQL system, HDFS and Hive, and then we also have the index storage, which is Elasticsearch. And then data science and discovery, these are the 2 main tools that we are using. There are other tools like Tableau, Power BI, and whatnot too, which the business is using to come and fetch the data from the platform. And at the bottom, we have all the security pieces, which is what most of the enterprise architects care about, but those are key. These are the technology that is used for the digital command center project, but I'll talk about more detail. So how many of you have used Nifi? I know you have heard about it a lot, but yeah, quite a decent crowd. So Nifi is a great tool for data flow, right? If you have API-based integration, IoT-based integration, or file-based integration, Nifi works great. I mean, I've been hearing some of the presentations and stuff around relational system as well, but I'm not very sure. We haven't really used it for relational systems. But if you talk about APIs and files, Nifi works like a charm. So I'll talk about why Nifi is a good fit for our digital command center solution, right? The next layer is HDFS and Hive. HDFS provides a great way of storing the raw information, and Hive allows you to provide a structural data model on top of your raw data set. So I'll talk about that in more detail. Elasticsearch is performance-wise, it's really awesome. I mean, if you want a sub-second latencies from your data, and you want to do on-the-fly aggregation and whatnot, Elasticsearch performs great. The last component is our engagement layer. So this is something that we are seeing more and more within our company, that if you want to have an interaction layer for the end consumer, we may want to build something custom because we want to make sure that it has consistent look and feel and experience for the end user, right? If you start building just Power BI, Tableau, or whatnot product, it may not give you the consistent look and feel that you want, right? So we have our engagement team, which is kind of like they use D3 and JavaScript, and that's what the front-end screen is built on. And in our case, we actually used crowdsourcing to come up with the design, and the implementation was done in-house using these technologies. So why Nifi? I have put in, I think, maybe 8 or 10 reasons of why. But so in your use case, it may or may not fit for you, right? So I would say definitely check out whether this is what you're running into. So I will share why it was a good fit for us. Number one reason, so if you see, this is actually a process group within Nifi. And process group is a collection of processors, right? And process group, you see there are like 3 of them. One is a historic load, the other one is a batch load, and the third one is a real time, right? And it's basically have the same flow, but we just want to show the 3 scenarios and stuff. The first scenario, the historic loads, so we were hitting Google Analytics data sets for historic information, and we had just one thread which was going in, right? We had like one call which was bringing 100 records per second. And we want to throttle it up really high. So what we did is we went to the processor and changed the concurrency to 10, and now we're getting 1,000 records per second, right? Which is very, very simple in Nifi, whereas in a lot of tools you may have to do quite a bit of coding before you get there, right? So that speed up our history loads for the 2 years of clickstream information. The next one is batch load, which is what you see in a lot of enterprises. You can still do that within Nifi. You can actually use configuration files with a start and end date, and that's how you can kind of like control every night what you want to bring in, right? The third one, real-time analytics. Nifi actually has a bunch of processor, and think of each processor as a logical unit of work, right? And each processor could be actually configured to run at different time. You can have a cron tab based, or you can have a time based. In the time based, if you set the time to 0 seconds, it runs continuously, and that's where you get a real-time, processor where you keep on getting the information as it's getting generated in the source system, right? So those are the 3 kind of integrations you can build pretty easily in Nifi with just small configuration changes, right? This is the second one, right? So multiple routing and stuff, right? So if you look at, we have dairy, which is animal, dairy, which is what humans eat, and then you have animal feed, right? Each are different kinds of businesses, Although my wife thinks I eat like a horse, but you do have different kinds of feed for different kinds of rules for different kinds of business units, right? You can generate those kind of rules pretty easily within Nifi, right? So you can actually create conditions, and you can get different streams to process the different sections of data. Most of the tool has it, but it is really, really handy in Nifi. The bottom section, actually, if you look at that, we hit a system which has, we have 4 business units, and we have 4 different platforms. Platforms are Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and whatnot. And then we have 3 different metrics. So that gives us 48 combinations, right? 48 different combinations of API call that you can make, right, to get the entire data set. We just use one JSON file to really manage all that configuration, and we have one flow which actually calls through that JSON and makes all these calls, right, which simplifies the overall integration drastically. So it could be very parameterized based. It could be, you can have JSON, and there are JSON readers, which makes the life really easy to build these integrations. Custom processors. Right, so Google Analytics usually uses OAuth 2, and there was no processor for OAuth 2, but it didn't take much time for us to really build a processor within Nifi using Java, right? So once you build a processor, you can actually make it reusable. You can do a processor for anything that you want, right? There was one other guy who was talking yesterday. They have a processor for actually fetching data from relational system using Python code. They have a processor for getting data from SCADA system. So you can write processor pretty easily. And once you write a processor, it is reusable across your entire integration, right? You can use it in anywhere in Nifi, right? So that's what we did with Google OAuth 2, refreshing the access token for Google. Number 4, real-time analytics, right? So this is a test here that I'm showing at the bottom. What we have used over here is we have used Google's Vision API, their speech API, and also their sentiment API. So what it does is you feed an image to Google, and it will give you, using its AI engine, the results of what is there in the image, right? In this image, you can see that is welcome to Land O'Lakes, and it actually passes that text information and provides you over there. So what you're doing over here is we actually taking image, making an API call to Google using that AI engine, and then getting the results from there and actually feeding into our Elasticsearch, right? It's very easy to kind of like build those kind of flows within Nifi. At the top section, we are using, again, an open source, algorithms, which is being provided by one of the companies, and that's for free for 1,000 transactions. We pass the text for Twitter and gives a sentiment analysis using NLP, right? So down the line, when you build your own algorithms, you can actually enable them via API and make those API calls within Nifi to have a real-time advanced analytics on the data set. Number 5, looping through multiple pages, right? So whenever you make a call to a website, there are usually like multiple pages that they give through. So this is a NOAA's example. We are an ag business, so we have a lot of weather data sets and stuff. So if you kind of call a NOAA, for example, they will have a limit and an offset, which tells, if you can have only 50 pages in one call, and then you have to kind of like offset that value to scroll through the entire pages, right? So you may have like 200 pages which you want to get through. So Nifi, you can do looping pretty easily to really, build that in your code so that it can scan through the entire page to get all the information, right? Fetch ones and load to multiple destinations, Nifi has a lot of processor for various kinds of destinations, right? I mean, if you have S3, blob storage, Cassandra, Mongo, Elasticsearch, HDFS, Hive, FTP, all these processes are available out of the box, right? So in our case, we had to put the data to Hive streaming for the folks to use SQL and Tableau and Power BI, whatnot. We also put it in an HDFS system in the rawest format. We pushed that into a downstream system. We wanted the same information. So this was one of the data Roma applications. And then we put that into Elasticsearch for fast API access. So a lot of the traditional or legacy integration systems, for building in any newer integration using some of these destinations, you have to either pay for additional licenses or they're not compatible or whatnot. Whereas since this tool was built, it's relatively new, it actually has built a lot of things for modern destination or modern storage formats. Handle data drift. I know some folks were interested in that piece, but this happens so many times in a company, right? You get a flat file from your vendor, and the flat file has 3 columns, and then on the 7th day, you had an additional column that came into the file, right? So how do you really handle this dynamic, changing schema, right? In Nifi, you can actually convert a CSV file into an Avro format. So it can read the top header and actually take the schema out from the actual data. And then downstream, you can just refer the data by the name rather than the position, right? So we had the situation, and it works great with the Avro format. You just read the schema. So whenever it changes from 3 to 4 columns, if the column name still remains the same, it will still actually hit the right value, right? I think this is the last one on Nifi. So we are using HDF, which is Hortonworks Data Flow, and it provides a lot of enterprise features around it. So if you look at that, it is scalable. It can scale up as well as scale down using Minify. It provides a great provenance and audit capabilities and stuff, where you can see what data is flowing through an entire pipe. It's very easy to develop. So when we started this project, it was just I knew Nifi somewhat. And then we had a couple of other developers who knew Hadoop, and they were good Java coders, right? And we started off this project. They were totally new to Nifi. They have never heard about it. And we 3 actually did this project, in a span of 2 to 2.5 months. So you can pick this technology really easily because it's all GUI-based, and development is really fast. And then maintenance is also good because it's all GUI interface, so you can see the entire flow rather than lines and lines of code. Security, it has LDAP integration, it has SSL, so no issues around that. Operations and monitoring, it has, it is Ambari integrated, so you can see all the stats over there, as well as you can do configurations from there. So that's the reason I put a stamp of enterprise grade, and it's very critical if you're putting something which is going to be critical for your applications, right? So that was why Nifi, why we are using HDFS and Hive, right? HDFS actually provides, you can put, raw data as it is over there. And why you need that? If you go to Adobe Analytics, there are like 900 attributes they have, right? If you make a call to Nova's website, they have 1,600 attributes they provide, right? If you go to Twitter, they have like 200 attributes, right? You don't want to model each and everything in your Hadoop platform, right? So you need to have a place where you can ingest all this raw format, and then later on just pick and choose what you want for your data model, right? So this is an example, but you can do it multiple ways. In this case, what we did is we declared the entire thing as a string, right? And then you can use some of the UDF functions within Hive to really read some of the specific columns, right? So that's one of the examples. You can also create an array and read the array by positions or whatnot. So there are multiple ways you can do that. Schema on read and all is good, but you have to bring the data together, because if you talk about a campaign, right, a marketing campaign, when it comes out, you have a campaign management system, you have a campaign budgeting and forecasting system, you have social media, you have websites, you have search data, you have banner data, you have email. So there are so many different channels that you use and systems you use to really make a campaign complete. You need to bring it all together. That's where you need to build a Hive layer where you actually bring in all this information together in a table, which could be easily consumed by the business folks, right? So you can't really leave it at the raw layer. You have to build something where you can actually make it accessible, and that's where Hive comes in really handy. Elasticsearch, so when we start off, we build most of our data set in Elasticsearch because of the API response that we needed. But once you have an Elasticsearch index, you can actually expose that as a Hive table, So business folk always like tables, you have to convert that to tables to really use, right? So this is a great way of actually taking an index and actually creating that as a Hive table so that you can use Power BI or Tableau on top of it, right? So that's why HDFS and Hive. There are more reasons. I just highlighted on one or two which are really important for us. Why Elasticsearch? So Elasticsearch, this screen does look prettier when you see real life. I've blackened up a lot of places, but it has, if you look at those right-hand side, it actually shows about unique page visits that you're having on each website. And those page visits are basically aggregation that is happening on the fly. So it's basically API calls that is going to Elastic and bringing all this information and showing in the front-end screen, right? And all this happens in like sub-seconds time. So if you go to our control panel and pick a particular business unit, it refreshes the screen like, blazing fast. And it's doing all that aggregation and whatnot in that sub-second time as well. And this we are using, I think, like a 3-node Elasticsearch cluster. With that we are getting this performance. So you can scale that and get it faster too. Kibana is our discovery tool. You can do search. As you can see, you can search for any term around the entire index. You can do time series analysis really well. You can select last 60 days or last 2 years or 1 year, and the data will still come in really, really fast. And then you can also do profiling of the information on the left-hand side, which is where you can take a terminology and actually, see what is the distribution of value for that term. The last one, real-time dashboard. If you are going to have something which is going to get refreshed on continuous basis, you need to have a backend system which can accommodate for that. In our case, what we're doing is, this is actually shows the traffic, we make an API call, we get that JSON and dump it to Elasticsearch, and Elasticsearch refreshes that information on every 5-second basis, and you won't even see the difference when that refresh is happening. It's that quick. And this bottom one is a map. I did it in the morning. Actually, you can see the sun kind of as sun goes from east to west. You can see the traffic also moving from left to right. So if you want to build a real-time dashboard, Elastic is a great way to go. And I think that was my last slide. With that, any questions? Sure.
It appears that Land O'Lakes is both a B2C and a B2B company.
Yes.
From the onset. So how do you tune, adjust the algorithms, obviously, especially from a marketing campaign perspective, since there are really two different type of audiences and segmented profiles.
Yes.
Individual. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's so if you look at our overall marketing analytics initiative, right? So the Digital Command Center was the first one. This first half of the year, we actually expanded the systems to bring in more application into the platform. And then rest of the 6 months, we're going to bring in a lot of the sales and point of sale information, right? And you're exactly right. We have 3 different businesses, and each business has different point of sale information, right? When you talk about buying animal feed or seed, it is farmers going to a retailer. They're not going to target to buy that, right? Whereas if we talk about people buying butter or cheese, they're going to target to buy that, right? So our segmentation, customer segmentation, is each business unit-wise. It is not one broad brush across entire business unit. And our campaigns are also very unique, because there is a totally different audience we are trying to hit. When you talk about farming, you're trying to get to the farmers, I think the average is around 57, whereas you talk about butter and cheese, it's a different kind of crowd, right? So it is different exercise for each business unit. Although there is some learnings that you can have, around our campaign management system is the same, We do budgeting using the same. We have the hierarchies pretty laid out in one single system. So there are certain systems which are common, but if you talk about point of sale and whatnot, it is very different.
Thank you.
Sure. Yep.
Are you aggregating before you go into Elasticsearch?
No, it's all granular.
What are you using to do the aggregation?
You don't have to, actually. So you can do aggregation on the fly using the API calls. So we are, like the screens that you saw, what we did was we pumped the data into Elasticsearch, and then we build Kibana dashboards within Elasticsearch. And once you build a Kibana dashboard, you can do aggregation and whatnot. So it gives you the exact API that you need to call to really get that result, right? And you just give that API to your front-end team, and they can put whatever visualization they want, but they'll use that API to get the data. But yeah, the aggregation is happening on the fly.
Wow, and you still got those speeds?
Yes, yes, it is.
Are you actually using Nifi?
We are not. But we do have a use case. So we have around like 60 plus manufacturing plants in US. And so these manufacturing plants are all different sizes and stuff. So we are thinking about how to leverage Nifi to get the data from some of those SCADA systems and whatnot,
And what size cluster for Nifi do you have?
Our Nifi cluster is, I think, just 3 nodes.
How many cores?
I think 16.
16 cores.
Yeah.
And sorry, one more. Volume of data?
Our volume is not that heavy. I think, so if you look at Llano Lake's, roadmap and where they want to go, the ag industry is consolidating a lot, right? So the idea is to actually, go to a scale of like, 25 billion to 30 billion, in a few years, right? So if we have that goal, we are going to grow as a part of our digital engagement, So the idea is we want to set up an environment which can scale, and we don't have to think about it once we actually get to that scale. So volume-wise, right now, no, it's not too big. Any other questions? Cool.
All right.
Well,
Thank you
thanks
for
a lot
coming.
for listening.
Is it on the mobile app? I believe it's on the mobile app. And basically rate us on this session. Thank you.